You don't want the truth, because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. We use words like honor, code, loyalty. We use these words as a backbone of a life spent defending something. You use them as a punchline, just like Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
Would you like to learn from those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level? Best-selling author of Speakeasy and master connector Lou Diamond is here to connect you to some of the most inspiring and amazing people on this planet. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another spectacular episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. And I'm your host, Lou Diamond, and I'm very excited today because we have the founder and chairman of the board of Acceleration Partners. He is the author of the inspirational newsletter Friday Forward. He's a #1 Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and international best-selling rock star. He's got a new book coming out on March 7th of 2023 called Elevate Your Team. He's the host of the Elevate podcast. Thrive Loud listeners, get ready to elevate this podcast because I'm going to bring you Robert Glazer. Robert, how are you today?
Good, Lou. Thanks for having me.
I always like guys who are moving onward and upward. That is what we do here in Thrive Loud, and that's what elevating is all about. I know a little bit about you. Our listeners, it's kind of new to them. So they could read a little show notes. They could check out the landing page. They could see all this really cool stuff. They could see how cool looking you look and all this cool background. But the reality is they want to hear it from you. Do me a favor, Robert. I don't want to rewind and go all the way to the womb. Can you share how the thing you're focused on now, this whole Elevate theme, how it became your gig?
Yeah, it started as a night and weekend gig. So I founded a company called Acceleration Partners. See, now you got me saying Elevate Partners. That's Bono's VC firm, I think. Acceleration Partners, and I was growing it over the years, and I really was unintentionally growing it. And I was like, I don't want to become all those companies that I don't like. And so each part along the way, there was kind of an intentional decision of, do we do the standard thing or do we do it differently? Acceleration Partners is about 350 people today in 10 countries globally. I've stepped down to the chairman role, but along my way, I started writing and talking about the things that we were doing and systems and things that were just different. And that kind of struck a chord. I started a little note to my team called Friday Forward, which was just kind of a thought or something about getting better. People started to share that outside the company. Pretty soon I wake up, a couple 100,000 people in 60 countries every week. And so that led me to start my original book, Elevate, start sharing kind of more of these ideas. And that's the short story. So now I'm stepping out of the day-to-day operations on the business, and I'm focused more on the speaking and the writing and taking some of these frameworks that I think are the key to how to grow yourself and how to grow your business and how to help people really. I'm passionate about helping people kind of identify and reach their potential.
Thrive Loud listeners, you know we're hitting Thrive Loud individuals when they say they're stepping down to become chairman. I'm just trying to recognize the first time I've ever heard that, but I think that had to do with stepping down your responsibility level versus your oversight.
Correct. Yeah.
All right. So let's help a little bit about I want to help our listeners paint the picture for what Acceleration Partners really does. And the way I usually love to ask this is, whose problems do you help solve? And what answers do you come up with?
Well, if I told you what we did, no one would understand it, because then they're always like, hey, well, can you give me an example of that? So I'll jump to that pretty quickly. But we are in a specialty called affiliate or partner marketing. Increasingly, influencers part of that. And we help large brands connect with marketing partners on a totally performance basis. So instead of paying for a click or paying for an impression, if someone out there has an audience or a footprint, they can send it over to one of these retailers, these partners, and if the person buys something, they get paid. So we build these programs for the largest kind of Fortune 500 companies and retailers and globally. We have a kind of specialty in doing this, helping them build partnerships, digitally tracked partnerships that have hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of partners kind of on a real time, sending traffic and customers to them.
Got it. Today, and here we are recording this at the beginning of 2023. Tell me right now, what's the biggest headache that your business face each day, and what's the aspirin that you guys help to cure that headache from?
Operationally or for clients?
Everybody,
I mean,
for you specifically.
I'll tell you, for me, the hardest thing has been I am someone who lives in the future. Like I like to, and hence why kind of stepping out of the day to day, I like to think about the next strategy, the next move, what we're going to do next year. I always had a great operational partner in the business. So he focused on the company today, and I was focused on the company next year. It's been really hard to do that the last couple of years. It's just been violent demand and supply swings. And, when we have board meetings and I think about it, whatever the topic that was the number one thing last quarter is just not even on the top 5 the next quarter. And so it's been really hard to be long-term in a world that's just constant dislocations and sort of, it's a 3 to 6 month view. So yeah, that's been difficult. So again, I think I've leaned on some of the stuff outside of the workplace in terms of, again, thinking about long-term goals and potential and how do you kind of move where you want to go, but you cannot take your finger off the pulse of your business today, or you will get stuck pretty quickly.
Robert, I understand that you've learned from 2 phenomenal players in the sports world, specifically from the great, we'll call them an empire, I won't even call it a dynasty, of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady for the last 20 plus years. Can you share with the listeners what you've learned from them about something we'll call professional meritocracy?
Yeah. So when I was, one of the things I talked about in my upcoming book, Elevate Your Team, is look, it's great concept to build your team, get people ready, get the potential, but then one day, like, they're going to want to start and you might not have enough, players on the roster. And I think sports provides so many, I know some people don't like sports analogies, but I think from a leadership standpoint, one of the best examples I ever heard was like a coach cannot cross the line and get on the field, right? They have to coach without being like, no, just give me the ball and let me show you how to do it. And so many, I think, leaders and managers could benefit from that. But, I talk about 3 types of organizations in the book. There's the star stifler, and I've been at those before, where like talent goes to die and mediocrity just tries to kind of, hold on to the job. Then there's catch and release organizations. So they're the ones that say, look, when we don't have the right path, or lose a great manager here, but we don't have a CFO role, so we're happy for him to go take the CFO role elsewhere, and we look at that as a great thing. I think there are very few true meritocracies, and I would say that as best person for the job at any time gets the promotion, moves ahead of the person if they're better than them. And there's a lot, even in sports, there's a lot of sunk costs. Oh, we signed this person, we drafted this person. I think more than anything, and Bill Belichick's obviously, but I think he is just totally objective in the best person starts. It doesn't matter if you're the highest paid, the highest drafted, the lowest drafted, the walk-on free agent. And people don't, forget back in 2001, when Drew Bledsoe, who just signed the largest contract in the league, $100 million, he got hurt for a couple games. This 6th rounder who was barely drafted came in and filled in for him. And then he came back in 4 games. And normally you would take your starting job and keep going because you're the starter in the huge contract. But Belichick was like, this kid's playing better, and I think we're going to go with a hot hand. And had he not made that decision, you might have never had, Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time. So I think it's hard for organizations to do that all the time. But I think a lot of organizations get building the talent right, and then they block them from starting when there's someone who they're clearly demonstrated, a higher ability than to be doing the same thing.
Elevating yourself versus elevating the team. I think this is one big comparison we have to do here. Look, a lot of people can self-motivate themselves. They could find the things that they drive for, their personal goals, and they could achieve it. But elevating a whole team of people and motivating them to do so, and also to work together cohesively, is a different type of challenge. I want to ask the question, when you first wrote Elevate and then you made this transition for this book, was there a pain point where you recognized that was the thing that needed to be focused on, or was it something you knew you needed to get to and it was just waiting for the right time to tell the story?
I won't give, I mentioned I stepped down and that's covered in the book, because I think look, there's an evolution. When you go from a contributor to a leader, a good leader, a lot of managers should be motivated by the performance of their team and should be coaching up their team to do everything they can and to take their job one day, presumably because there's a better job for you to take, right? They're moving up to the right, you're moving up to the right. I think a lot of people have a hard time doing that. So, the first book was focused on how do you elevate yourself and individuals. I think this was focused on how do you do this with an organization? How do you make a learning organization, an organization where people understand their strengths, where you have psychological safety, emotional vulnerability, where people are focused on their physical health, and all of these things benefit the organization. But any great leader is focused on the organization first, the team second, and themselves third. Now, that's easy to say. It's harder to do. So I think the time comes for a lot of us as if you're willing, if you really are believing that, and as I did for me, saying there's someone else that is better suited to do my job than me. And that's when I decided to give that person the job.
There was a guy years ago I worked for who had the best methodology. His goal was to be the lowest paid person on his entire team. And he oversaw the entire team because he wanted to see all of his people outperform him. And he had 1 year, by the way, where that almost was the case. And I remembered saying, I go, that's maybe the best motivation, because a lot of times there's internal structures. Your example of the Drew Bledsoe highest contract ever signed. And then obviously here comes a guy, off the bench who ends up becoming the greatest ever.
Right. Who's going to pay a CFO $500,000 and then realize that their VP of finance is actually better than that person?
Exactly.
And like a lot of people don't have the, like the chutzpah to do that, the manager, to do that.
Well, I'll argue what it is it's creating a culture where that is the environment that thrives. And that is one that elevates. And it doesn't have to be like, it's always going to be this. It's based on how you performed in that year, and make sure you set the right goals.
Yeah, we've accepted that in sports, right? You might say, "Oh, it's cup." If you are playing terribly, like you're going to go on the bench, and someone else is going to come in the game. Like,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I guess my question is, as you look at when you first started your company, and now how you're seeing it from this chairman role, how much change has happened? Was a lot of the lessons you've learned and the best ways to elevate people and their teams through the experiences you've had on the teams in the beginning, or was it stuff that you learned from through the years, almost like as a development? Yeah,
I think I learned along the way. So the biggest thing, and I talk about this in both books, is the magic formula that we sort of came down to. And I talk about this framework of looking at this across spiritual, intellectual, physical, and emotional capacity. But it was like, look, if we want to grow the organization with people, because there's been a playbook in the last 10 years that says grow the organization and like break people and get new people, but keep growing. So instead of making the people the foundation of the growth of the business, it's grow it irrespective of the people, and we'll just kind of swap them out. And that's kind of, I'm not going to say it's worked, but it's been tolerated for a little bit. I think it's quickly coming undone. I think we realized that, look, what if we focused on, we don't think people are the same, different inside and outside of work. And now when they're working from home, there's even less designation. So what if we focused on the things that made people holistically better? Like, I don't think you're someone that's tired at home and shows up to work with a ton of energy, or you can prioritize at work and you go home and you're terrible at prioritization. What if we focused on all of these things holistically, made people kind of better leaders, managers at work, but also improve their life outside of work? Wouldn't that be a nice win-win? And that's sort of when we went all in on this strategy of capacity building. Like, why don't we just focus on building people's capacity overall? And not only will the business benefit from it, but they will benefit from being associated with the business.
I like it. There's always an unexpected gift an author gets when he writes a book. Obviously, your intended gift is to give the lessons that you learn for the reader to take away from the message you have. When you wrote this version, Elevate Your Team, in the writing process, was there an unexpected present that you learned about yourself, or something that happened as you were putting this message together on its own? And was it something different from the first book you wrote?
Well, I actually... I'm someone who starts writing a little bit and then kind of figures it out afterwards. I was listening to an interview on this rather than laying it all out. And I actually hadn't gotten to this last chapter point of like, okay, if you do all this stuff, what is the logical conclusion that you are going to come to with these difficult situations? And might it actually impact you? at almost the same time that I was having to make this decision for myself. And I had not really even thought about that in the context of it. It was just so much of the capacity stuff resonated for, hey, this is how I can build myself and my leadership team. But then I realized it was the operating system that we were running as an organization. But I actually hadn't thought about that. Okay, so then what happens when you do all of this stuff and you're faced with these kind of rising leaders, and where do they go? So that gave me maybe it was some self-justification, but an interesting path to think about that. I also got lucky in that, you write a book a year or two before that, but writing a book about culture, building people. Otherwise, 2 years ago, people would have been like, screw this, grow, lose money. And actually the timing has just been beautiful in that respect, in that I don't think anyone thinks the leadership playbook of the last 10 years, the last couple of years will even work anymore. Yeah. People are so burnt out. They're exhausted. If you think just go telling them to work more and firing them is going to work going forward, I don't. So I think, timing's everything. I had some bad timing on some books, but, this book is coming out, I think, with an alternative playbook around sustainable growth at a time where I think we're headed into a sort of value and sustainable growth phase over a growth at all cost phase.
I love asking guests this question. I want to see where this goes, Robert. Look, you've been thriving in your career, and obviously as a writer, as an executive, and running your company, and obviously in all the books you put together. Yet we all have those days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders and we're a little off our game. Robert Glazer, when you have trouble thriving, what practice do you seek, or maybe which individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
Yeah, I have noticed, and particularly in the pandemic, that there's two things I think that when I'm feeling down and tired and, no mojo, two things. One, I'm consuming a lot of news, which I tried to stop doing. And two, I'm on a lot of Zoom calls. I'm online. I'm in a lot of meetings. Right. And for me, I'm sort of I'm a natural introvert, even though I have a lot of extroverted functions I have to do. Like, I could do these podcasts all day long and I would love them, and then I go pass out on the couch at the end of the day. So I need quiet. I need to get outside. I need to get off the computer. I need to turn off the news. I just need to go re-engage with kind of life. I've seen that as a particular pattern of just feeling like I'm playing defense and I can't play offense. So I'll try to get back to a better morning routine, get back to exercise. I mean, there's countless studies around just what being outside, does for you and all of that. And so for me, that's the reset I usually need.
By the way, really funny regarding the no news. Last year, 2022, I had the no news is good news mentality. Yeah. And I literally stopped watching national news and all of that. All I did was watch local news at night for weather, and then obviously some sports related information, just because I have it makes
you feel horrible. There's nothing. Everyone's tried the Good News Channel and no one will watch it, right? Well, I mean, they know.
Well, the other issue is that the news is catered to trigger pain points in you, the way a story is sold and what gets your attention. Even the local news is tough because, like, literally, there was a shooting in downtown New York. There was a fire.
Well, think about the weather. Is there any weather pattern that's not named now? Atmospheric river, bomb, cyclone. Like it's
well, I love this is
nor'easter. Like, it's just.
We've had some executives on the some broadcasters from the CBS New York news team on the show, and this past year, like, literally any weather has an alert color. Like, if it's gonna rain, there's like yellow alert. If it's gonna rain really heavy, it's red alert. And I'm like, they need to say it's a red alert weather to get your attention, as if we didn't already know when the weather was going to be airing in the news. Anyone who's up at 11 o'clock at night, they're waiting for the 11:15 mark, because that's pretty much when they're about to go to sleep. Okay, is it going to rain tomorrow? Great. I don't need an alert or some kind of warning to send me into a bunker before the weather comes out. I just don't get it. But that's what they're meant to do. So I just stopped news entirely, and I felt so much better.
You may have experienced this, but as I've talked to people and some family members the last couple of years, when they seem to be struggling, whatever your poison is, whether it's CNN or Fox or whatever, I'm like, are you watching the news like a ton today? It's almost, the answer is always yes. Yeah. When they're just really caught up on something or hung up on it, you turn it off and it's like none of it exists, right?
It's the truth. You host a podcast show, the Elevate podcast. What has that experience been like to you? What do you love about it? What's your favorite aspect about hosting that program?
Yeah, interesting, because I've been thinking about those things. We just hit 1 million downloads, and so I've been writing kind of what I've learned along the journey. So I've been in the mindset of this. But yeah, I mean, I just really enjoy having conversations with interesting people. I mean, that's kind of why I do it. And it's interesting, as I had the book launch, and you may have seen this, I went out to a bunch of the podcasts that I was on years ago, and I checked in with a bunch of them, and I would say half of them aren't doing it anymore. You know, I think people, there's understanding why you're doing something. And for me, it's like these conversations with really interesting people, asking them the questions I want to ask them, sharing that knowledge, like that's the why. So like, there's no need to stop it. I think people who thought they'd make $1 million or would change their whole career, I think when you go to do something, hoping you'll get something else out of it, rather than trying to make it the best that it can be, in all facets of life, I think you end up a little bit disappointed. But it's been interesting to me to see how many big people, also sometimes when you start something late, you just can't recreate the early, who just thought it's hard. It's hard to start a podcast in 2023.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think it's like you need a little bit of everything with the show. Like, yeah, you got to love the conversations you have. And yeah, you can utilize the podcast for your business growth and your marketing and certain aspects of it. It just can't be all of that. And it just can't be all of fun. It's, it's a little bit of balance. To me, what people love, what people have told me they always loved about Thrive Loud is that you can always learn something new from every one of these guests. And we're trying to tap into what makes that individual thrive and what makes them stand out, or what makes them elevate their lives, their businesses, their passions. And the thing that I think we will never get tired of is great conversationalists are trying to really engage the world, because like our little chat today, someone's listening to, and they're going to take something from it and hopefully use it for their own benefit, whatever it might be. Like your tactic of stepping down as chairman, it might be the title of this episode.
Stepping down to chairman.
So stepping down to chairman, exactly. Yeah. Figuring out what the right, there's some little tweak that we could all learn from each other, and we just want to be able to provide that as a gift. So kudos to you, by the way, in 1 million episodes. That's amazing. It's awesome. Downloads or listens.
Yeah, wasn't 1 million episodes. That would be, yeah.
A million episodes.
You'd have to question my accounting on that. But yeah, I think, again, look, podcasts, as I'm sure, it can be very good for business, but it's good for business because you do something that's high quality and it's your brand and has an impact. I think if you're doing, like, for instance, I told you we're in affiliate, marketing. Over the years, people have said to me, I want to start an affiliate site to make money. What should I write about or talk about? And my answer is always like, look, the best affiliates that I know didn't start with that question. Right. They loved grilling, they love whatever, they just start a content. If you're going to write every day, like, you can't fake that. They started making money after they got known as an expert in X, Y, and Z. Like, you're going into it not for the right reason. So yeah, there's a chicken and an egg argument. Yeah.
We had and before we'll get to the admin part of the show in a second, we had Jay Bear on the show not too long ago. Classic marketer, amazing guy. And we split the episode that he was on, talk about some things going on in his world, but also his tequila social media account, which has blown up like you can't imagine. And he joked about it because if you would have told him like his 25 plus years of business experience, he would have outpassed the people who cared or were interested in followers in like 6 months talking about tequila. He would have started a long time ago, but he loves his passion and he's great about it.
Yeah. He does a great job at it. That's it. Like, we all see these marketers, you land on their website, they're kind of thought leader marketer, and it's selling you stuff left and right. There's pop-up, like, you just know it's not going to be good. It shouldn't. If something's so good, it doesn't need to be sold to you so aggressively, right?
It's so true. Let's do the admin part of the show.
Yeah.
Robert, share with people everywhere they could find you. We will put it all in the show notes. Great handles, URLs, whatever you want to promote. We've got the book link here for when your episode comes out, or where to pre-order it, I assume, is coming down the pike here. I think that's what's going to be here. And
all the answers lead to the same place. So Glazer.com, robertglazer.com. Podcast is on there. You can sign up for Friday Forward, books, everything is all in one place.
You ready to roll down Fun Street, my friend?
I'm ready to roll.
Okay. Share with me. We hit this at the top of the show before we hit record. There are 3 movies, and they fall into different categories to you of ones that you love or guilty pleasures or whatever it is. There are 3 movies that you answered as one of your favorite movies that you love to share.
Yeah, I just can pick one. So
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt.
So guilty pleasure, Top Gun. And it's funny because for years people started to not know that or understand that. And I think the new Top Gun is really kind of like, I mean, it was a good movie. It's brought that back in everyone's life. I mean, I've seen that movie over 100 times. I think, best movie, I sort of put Shawshank, Redemption. But I also had A Few Good Men. I mean, some of the scenes in A Few Good Men to me, like Jack Nicholson, it's just some of the best lines of all time. And You Can't Handle the Truth, and the whole, just a great. I just showed that to my son recently. We watched it for the first time. It's such a classic movie. I mean, the cast in that movie is also ridiculous. Yeah,
I saw Kevin Bacon do in an interview talk about the scene in A Few Good Men with the who ordered the code red.
Oh yeah, it wasn't in the script, right?
Yeah. So his legitimate shock when he convicts himself on the stand and Cruise looks to him to say, you need to say something, and you see there's a pause, which was double fold. He said, legitimately, I was paused because I couldn't believe that he said it, but also the performance was so unbelievable that he was floored. He didn't even know, like, what the hell am I going to say to, like, get my line out here? So just really
So was it the line where he said, "You bet I did"? Like, yeah. he actually, that wasn't in the script and he just blurted it out or something?
It was all part of the script, but it was the execution of it. The
was
way
just
it came
so
out,
real.
and both of them, just like, I mean, truth is, it probably was, Cruise was great in Top Gun, but that scene in Few Good Men is some of his best acting.
That's one of that scene is probably one of the best scenes in a movie ever, right? So we'll go with that was my favorite scene. How's that?
Okay, well, we'll go with that. We could put that in there. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions here. We're going to do the speed round of Fun Street, Robert. Okay. Everyone's loving this thing we do. We've been doing it for so long. I don't know if they love it, but I know the guests love it, so that doesn't matter. I'm going to ask you something. First thing that comes to your mind. These are things that lift you up, motivate you, make you feel good. Basically, they make you thrive. All right, ready? Of late, recently, a song you've been listening to or one that pumps you up.
What's it's Ed Sheeran's new song on his new album. I can't think of the name. It's blanking me. But
he's got so much of them. We'll ask our producers to tap back with you, whatever it might be.
It'll come to me in a second.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Sushi.
Favorite dessert.
Ooh, ice cream cake.
Ooh, I like that. An activity you wish you did more of.
Skiing.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Oh, drinking.
I may have flipped that one around.
Yeah.
An activity you recently tried that you would recommend to everyone you meet.
Yeah, so it goes with skiing, but I have been doing uphill skinning, so climbing the mountain and then going down, and it's an incredible workout. And most places, like, you can do it for free. Like, they don't even charge you. There's always sort of
because you're not paying for a lift ticket.
I
totally
get it. Ski lift down at mountains. There's like in the summer you can hike. There's always been this rule. Some of the mountains charge you. Very, very rarely do they check you.
You've taken lift ticket for its real definition, right?
Yeah.
It's never a ski ticket. If I could snap my fingers, Robert Glazer, and you could be anywhere in the world, where are you?
Top of Kilimanjaro, since that's a goal of mine.
What's the highest peak you've ever climbed to date?
Oh, not very high. Like no. I mean like a 4,000 or 5,000 footer. But I always try to have goals a couple years out, and that's one that I want to plan to do with one of my kids. So if I'm thinking it's somewhere where I want to, I've seen the sign, I've seen everyone pictures at the sign. So, you got to kind of visualize that.
I like it. Robert Glazer, the Elevate podcast, Elevate Your Team. Thanks so much for coming on the program, and thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Lou. Appreciate it.
And to all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep moving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You make me shiver. Baby, you burn so hot. You make me shiver with a fire. You got this thing we started. I don't want it to stop. You make me shiver. Yeah, you got me singing like.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.